Hi, everyone. This is Ray Luskin of the Creative Activist Way, Turning Pain to Purpose. And I am so excited you're here today. I have a wonderful guest, Marva Riley, a retired registered nurse, author, speaker, and advocate for healthier aging and women's wellness. And as you all know, I love to start with a poem. The Heart Knows. Sometimes the heart does more than beat. It asks us to listen, to slow down, to choose differently, to begin again. What once brought fear can become wisdom. What once felt like an ending can become a doorway. And sometimes the life we almost lost becomes the life we are called to share. So welcome, Marva. I'm so excited you're here. It's just such a pleasure. And yeah, so I think we're just going to dive in. I know this can be a great conversation. We could have talked 20 minutes before we even started today. So, one of the ideas behind the Creative Activist Way is that our challenges become the seeds of purpose and contribution. You were at 38, you were faced with a diagnosis, and I'd love for you to tell us about that and how it is, spurred the work you're doing right now.
Okay, so thank you for having me, Ray. I really appreciate the opportunity to chat with you and to share some of my experiences and my tips and whatever with your audience. Thanks for having me.
Of
So
course.
I was 38, married with two children. And I had a good marriage. My children were not getting into trouble. I was involved in church. I had a great job. I had a great community. And then I started having some health challenges. I was having difficulty breathing, and I just always felt faint. I was a registered nurse who worked in the recovery room, and I just felt like my heart was beating fast. So my coworkers hooked me up to a 12 lead EKG, and they saw that my heart was just going crazy. So I made an appointment to see my general practitioner. Then a nurse practitioner saw me and she said, "You're not going home." She said, "I want you to go." She said to me, "I called the cardiologist that we work with, and I want you to go straight to him." So I went to him and he did the EKG, which showed that I was in ventricular tachycardia. My heart rhythm was just erratic and fast. And he did an echocardiogram, which is an ultrasound of the heart, and it shows that my heart, the muscles of my heart, was pumping at 35%, and normally 65 or greater. And so he put me on these medications, beta blocker, ACE inhibitor, that kind of thing, to slow the heart, make it pump more efficiently. And all of that just made me worse. And then I was just like a zombie at work. And one of my coworkers said, "Listen, you need to go see an electrophysiologist, someone who specializes in the electrical activities of the heart." So I did. And he saw me real quickly because my friend Carrie, who was a nurse, worked for him part-time. And he said, "Listen, Marva, this is not unusual. I see many women in their late 30s to early 40s with this heart condition called cardiomyopathy. They don't know what it was, of unknown cause, because I didn't have any other health issues." And he said to me, "But it can be fixed with a simple procedure." So he scheduled it. And I think it was the next day or the day after that, I went in for a cardiac ablation. And he did that. I went home the same day. He told me when I went back for my checkup in a week, "I want you to flush all the pills. I want you to exercise 30 minutes every day, change your diet, take up yoga, do prayer and meditation, spend time in nature, and take care of yourself." And I was so desperate to feel better, I followed his prescription to the T.
How did you fit that all in? I've lived this life very much the same things that you're talking about, but it took time for me to make it part of my daily practice. It's like spending time in nature. So before we talked today, I was out at 7 o'clock this morning, walking along the beach, taking photographs, doing things like that and meditating. And But you're working. You've got a mom, your mom. You've got all this other stuff going. How do you pull that all together then?
Well, it wasn't easy because at that time I also worked night shift in the hospital. It's 12 and a half hours at night.
Hmm.
So even when I was off, I felt like a zombie. I never got enough sleep.
Yeah.
It was not easy. But because I felt so sick for so long, I was desperate to feel better. So I was willing to do whatever it took. And so I gradually started incorporating what he taught me as best as I knew how. And I would go on YouTube also and look up people that were living this lifestyle, and I get tips from them. They were testimonials and stuff like that. So it took time, and I would fall back, and I took time and I would fall back. And then eventually it became my lifestyle. I gave up a lot of things that I once enjoyed. I used to like eating sugary stuff like ice cream, and I gave up the cereals in the morning. I had to relearn how to eat. And then I didn't walk every day because I could not, because I worked 3 12-hour shifts at night. So the other 4 days that I was off, I did a minimum of 30 minutes, and I would do it in the sunlight. So I was killing three birds with one stone. I was
Right.
out exercising, I was out in the sunlight, and I went to the park to exercise. So I was getting fresh air and out there in nature. I also disciplined myself to go to bed at a specific time, because that's another thing. I didn't have a specific bedtime because I worked while I was in nursing school. I had a husband and I had two little kids. So I had to discipline myself to go to bed at the same time on the nights when I was not working. It took time
Hmm.
to incorporate all the changes, and especially when you don't quite know what you're doing.
Right.
So you're
Right.
feeling things out and learning as you go. And nothing in life happens overnight.
Right. And that's why I brought it up, because some people think it's all or nothing. And some you can't sustain all or nothing, especially, that's why when people do their, New Year's resolutions, by February, most people have fallen off because I'm into this. I'm going to run every day. I'm going to do this. And then they don't. So it's learning to care for ourselves, listen to our bodies, pay
Yes.
attention, and forgive ourselves if we are not perfect.
There's no perfection. And there's absolutely no perfection
I
because
agree with you, but I think people
yeah,
think so. They want to be perfect. I even hear my 11-year-old granddaughter talking about, I'm not perfect. Oh my God, stop. There is no such thing. You don't
there's
have
no
to be
such thing.
perfect. Yeah. It's the
But
mind.
the culture teaches us to reach for perfection.
Right,
And because there's no perfection, it leaves us frustrated and we give up.
right.
Because even in school they teach children they need to be straight A student or
Hmm.
they're nothing. And if you get a C or a B, then you're not good enough.
Right.
But there's no, and I like the fact that you mentioned this New Year's Eve resolution. It's utter, it's nonsense. Every day we can be intentional about setting a goal. And if our goal is to walk 7,000 steps, many of us have these
I
step
got my
things.
watch.
Okay. If your goal is 7,000 steps, but you did 5,000, why beat up on yourself? You got some in,
Right. I
but
totally get that. Yeah.
yeah, do the best. Every day get up and say, I'm going to do the very best that I can today. I have a movement in my life on my social media platforms where I make Monday my reset day. So if a lot of us mess up with our diet or whatever it is on the weekend, don't worry about it. Monday is an opportunity to reset and refocus and restart without the guilt.
I love that. Yeah, without guilt. I think that's a big thing. No
Mhm.
matter where we are in life, it is about letting go of that, because the guilt we carry, or shame or whatever it is, and that
Mhm.
not good enough. And we have to let that go. I mean,
Yes, yes.
for we are all human beings. We are all here. We're all God's children. We have beauty within us. We are creative, curious, beautiful
That's right.
souls. And when we're beating ourselves up, that is not good for our body, mind, or spirit.
That's right. That's right. There's no condemnation at
Right.
all. And and some of us, we were taught in church or so that Jesus was perfect. Jesus wasn't perfect. I mean, Jesus kicked over tables in the temple when he was mad at what they were doing. Jesus was absolutely not perfect, and we're made in God and Jesus's image. We're not perfect, and we're on this journey, a beautiful journey of up and down, ebb and flow, in and out, here and there. We got to enjoy every moment. There's a scripture in the Bible that says, "Give thanks in all things." It didn't say just give thanks when you lose that 20 pounds you wanted to lose, or when you were able to stay away from that sugar, or when you went to bed on time. It says everything. When you're suffering, you should give thanks. When things are going well, you should give thanks. All things. And when you have that mentality of thanksgiving, you don't beat up on yourself.
I want to talk a little bit about some of the books you've written and why
Mhm.
you created this lifestyle and you're sharing it.
Okay, the why I created this lifestyle. So when I was diagnosed with cardiomyopathy, I knew that I did not want traditional Western medicine, because
Right.
you get hooked on these pills, and then one pill lead to another pill, lead to another pill. They don't get to the underlying cause of the issue. And then after that was corrected, I also went through another period of a lot of illnesses, and I went to see conventional Western medicine doctors, and all they offered me was drugs, and I did not want to do that. So I started doing my own research, and there were many testimonials that pointed to embracing a holistic lifestyle, something that cardiologist had told me about years ago.
Right.
Okay, to include body, mind, spirit. So I started doing that, and I was able to heal myself of many of these health issues that I had, including depression, um, gastric reflux, H. pylori, irritable bowel, a lot of those things, because a lot of those physical illnesses are related to mental and emotional problems. So when I was able to heal myself using these tools, and I realized that my patients were not being healed, they were being given what I called a band-aid because it wasn't getting to the source of the problem. I decided to talk about my issues and how I was able to heal myself and continue to heal myself using a holistic approach.
I love
So
that.
I
And
used,
how did that work being in the hospital setting? Could you still be a registered nurse in that setting, knowing that you weren't, happy with the system and that you were going toward natural homeopathy, functional medicine, whatever you want to call it, you know?
uh-huh.
So how did that work for you? Because that must have been challenging.
It was challenging in that I couldn't really share my experience in terms of what I was doing or what I had done to heal myself with my patients. I
Gotcha.
wasn't allowed to. I had to follow the hospital protocol. Okay. But I was learning from my patients that the steroids, whatever it is, because when I had a severe allergy issue where I was allergic to virtually everything, and they offered me steroids and Benadryl. And I saw that in some of my patients, and many of them became diabetics from being on steroids long term. And Benadryl has a lot of negative side effects, but I couldn't really say anything because I had to
Right.
follow the hospital protocol. Now, after I left the hospital setting, that gave me permission to speak on various platforms about my experience, which is why I don't tell people what to do. I share my experience, what I went through, what I did, where I am right now. If you follow my platforms, you'll see it's what I went through, what I'm doing now, and where I am right now. So
I
hopefully
totally
this
get that. Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm not telling anyone, oh, you need to drink 8 ounces of water. I'm telling you, I drink 64 ounces of water, for example. I'm not
Right.
telling you to lift weights. I'm telling you, I lift weights. So it is by doing these things, I said, I need to share these things with the world. And
Hmm.
my husband said to me, you're always writing in these journals, because journaling was one of the tools I used to help heal myself.
I have
And he
journals
said,
up to here. Yes, I get it.
yes. And he said, you should put that in a book. And I said, but who's going to read that book? He said, well, if you're reading other people's books, somebody will read your book and at least one person will be helped. And that's how my first book was birthed. Eat, Sleep, Meditate, a Nurse's Guide to Health. And
Yeah.
it has sold a lot of books and it's helping a lot of people all over the world.
Well, I understand even, from a different perspective. So a couple of years ago, I broke my foot. I had to go into a rehab place and all this kind of stuff. And my attitude was so different because I was
Yeah.
not into traditional medicine. I said, get me out into the garden as soon as you can. What do you mean? I don't want to sit in this room. I want to be outside. There's, beauty there, and I need this, and I do. And they're like, you don't belong here, you know.
That's right.
But it's true. I have adopted so much of what you're saying. It's an east-west philosophy. For me, if I need an antibiotic, I will go. But at the same time, I will try vitamin C, I'll do an infusion, I'll do whatever, all these other things that I know serve me as well as I'm always, and I'm going to let you laugh. All the little cells in my body are happy. All the little cells in my body are well, and I'll do that.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
other one is, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I be safe, may I be at
Right.
peace. And I do that for my whole entire family and all my friends as well.
Right.
But these are things that serve me. And
That's right.
so I think, and like you said, it's not for everybody, but it is like I try and do exactly what you're saying. Share who
Mm-hmm.
I am, my experiences, and you can do
Mm-hmm.
with it as you choose. But I want
Yes.
people to be exposed to something. So I so applaud you for sharing this.
Yes, yes. I mean, I believe God puts or the experiences in our lives so we can be empathetic towards others, and so that we can share these things that will help other people. Because I mean, I think if I didn't experience suffering, if I didn't experience health problems, I mean, to be honest with you, I was always a very empathetic nurse. I got awards. Like the Daisy Award is one of the highest award that a nurse can get, and I was awarded the Daisy Award for excellent nursing. So I always had a compassion and a deep love for people and to help them. But experiencing life-threatening illnesses like I did made me so much more compassionate and made me want to just share what I've experienced, what I did, and what the outcome was. So it wasn't just that experience was just not just for me, but it's for me to help
Right.
humanity.
I want to ask you, it's teaching, how do you teach people to listen to their body, to pay attention to the body wisdom?
I think you just have to just say that, listen to your body and pay attention to your body. But ultimately, this is what I find. A lot of time people ignore this temple, they ignore this body until it knocks on their door.
Yeah.
That was me. Sometimes you having that ache and pain and whatever is going on, and the body is talking to you and talking to you, and you won't listen until it knocks you down.
Right.
I remember I used to hear this saying that God puts you on your back so that you can look up.
Oh, I never heard that.
And
Yeah.
yeah, so sometimes you have to really get knocked down for you to just slow down, for you to make time to get outside bare feet, for you to prioritize sleep. No matter what you hear other people say, you ignore what they say until you're forced to do what they say. But we should keep talking, because I remember when I used to read the Bible. I remember one time I said to my sister, my God, I just can't remember these scriptures, because I'd read the Bible so many times I just couldn't remember the scriptures. And she said to me, and in her wisdom she said, Marva, when you need those scriptures the most, they'll come to you. And it's so true. So when we talk about health and wellness and people hear it and you think that it has fallen on deaf ears, when they need that word of encouragement, when they need that information the most, it'll come to them.
Okay. I like to talk about, now you talk about meditation and things like that now, but I think, really sitting in the silence and going and doing an inventory of your body is really important, because we're so busy all the time that I
Mhm.
do spend time, just slowing down, closing my eyes, noticing, oh, whatever it is, I think that has helped me as a tool over the years to become much more in touch with my feelings, my emotions, everything, because I'll have dialogues with my body, that kind of thing. So I think it's, again, asking us all to slow down and pay attention, and hopefully you don't have to get knocked on your back to do that. So if we can
That
make
is true.
choices, but I understand, pain to purpose, it's like, yeah.
That is true. But I'm telling you, based on my experience, a lot of times it takes that for us to
Okay.
listen because we're so busy slowing down. I'm too busy to slow down. I'm busy building my business. Busy building my podcast. I'm busy writing books. I'm busy doing this, busy doing that. And everybody that I know that it has slowed down and is listening to their body is because they were forced to.
Okay.
I'm not saying it has to be that way, but in my 64 years, I have noticed that that is
Okay.
indeed the case. And slowing down, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to spend half an hour like
Oh,
outside.
it's a 5-minute process.
5 minutes.
Yes, I mean, yes, I'm not talking about a long, it's a
Yeah,
body scan, 5 minutes, that's it, and it's like, oh, okay. Um,
yeah.
I want to ask you, I know now you're focusing on menopause. You have a new book
Oh,
coming out. So let's
yes.
talk about that a little bit. And also I think it's important because to hear messages about aging, positive messages, because so many of us are still in flight or fright about aging. So,
Yeah. I like that you said that because the most important thing that I've learned with aging is that I have to accept that aging is inevitable. Um, there's a doctor, I don't remember her name, but she's a gynecologist, and I heard her years ago on Oprah Winfrey's show, and she wrote a book
is this
that's
Northrop?
entitled,
Is this Northrop?
I think so,
Yeah,
Goddesses Don't Age.
that's Northrop. Yeah.
That the title, I haven't read the book, but the title of that book has inspired me because I too, when I started getting a little wrinkles here and there, the eyes don't look as bright. I lost a lot of my hair through menopause. This is not my hair. And start getting the aches and pain here and there. And I was very frustrated. And I remember I shared with my daughter, she's 45. I said, Marsha, man, I'm not really liking this aging thing. And she said, Mom, getting old is a privilege. And because she said so many of my friends did not get the opportunity to be old. And that has stayed with me. She said that about 2 years ago, and that has stayed with me. Now, all of my books, I've written 3 books by myself, and one is a collaborative book with Marie that you had on your show, and I think 10 others. And this is my 5th book, and all of them have been based on my life experience. So menopause has been pretty rough with me. It was when I entered menopause, it was rough, and then I got a break for about 13 years. I was just in a space that was just amazing. I was able to maintain the weight I want, and everything was just perfect, no problems. And then boom, last year I piled on 18 pounds. The hot flashes came back, the sleep issues came back, the joint pain came back, and worse. And I felt that I needed to write this book to encourage women because sometimes these menopausal issues start when women are in their 30s. It could start 15 years before you actually go into menopause at 50, you know. And I felt that many women don't understand this menopause. I know the doctors don't understand this menopause, because all that I've been through, no doctor has ever said to me, oh, the joint pain you're having is menopause. They would, the hot flash, yes, but not the migraine, never connected to menopause. And I've done a lot of research for this book. I've interviewed many women, and a lot of the issues that we have are related to the decline in estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. And I wanted to kind of educate women about that and show them how they're able to navigate this journey. It's inevitable, but you can navigate it in a healthy way.
Okay, so if somebody today said, I've got all these things, what is the first thing you'd ask them to do or to think about? If they're noticing the pain, the hot flashes, or whatever it is, what would you be your suggestion to them?
I'd probably suggest them to look at their diet, because the diet can have negative or positive impact on our menopause experience. If we're consuming a lot of fried foods, if we're consuming a lot of sugar, if we're consuming a lot of alcohol. So I would look at the diet. I would also have them suggest that they look at their exercise regimen, their sleep regimen, their outdoor regimen, their holistic lifestyle. What are you doing? Because some of these things can affect how we experience menopause in a positive or negative way. And if everything is good in those departments, I would suggest that they see a physician who specializes in menopause health. Because most regular gynecologists, or many, I should say, many regular gynecologists, including the ones I saw over the years, have no clue about menopause because they weren't taught these things. But there are several or many specialists that studied or specialized in menopause health that might be able to offer some other guidance, maybe hormone replacement therapy if it's appropriate, and other things. Like my doctor is a holistic health, alternative health medical doctor, and he had suggested things to me like get outside in the morning when the sun is rising and spend at least 20 minutes out there bare feet. You know what I mean? He has suggested to me like do like tapping, things like that.
Oh, yeah,
Rebounding.
I did tapping before I got on here. I was doing some tapping. I love low band padding. So I get what you're talking about. These are all part of my regime every day. You know, sometimes it's a little more this, a little more that, but I totally get that. And I did not experience, I had a hysterectomy when I was 35, not a complete one. So, but I did not experience a lot of the stuff that a lot of women did. I did have some hot flashes and stuff, but it was less than a lot of my friends because because of that. But so how can somebody get a hold of you or find out more about you?
Okay. I am on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and so they can, as Marva Riley, just look up Marva Riley. I'm there. I'm always sharing tips on holistic health and wellness. And also my books are available on Amazon. They're $9.99. I have 4 of them. Just look up Marva Riley and they're there. But the best way to reach me is on social media, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok.
Okay, that's good to know. Do you have any final words for us for today?
My final word would be, there is a saying that says health is wealth, and we think it's a cliche, but it isn't. Most of us ignore our health until something serious happens, but prevention is indeed the best. You know, the saying, an ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure. It really is so. I also would say you don't have to jump right in. You can start taking baby steps. Like instead of having a donut, have an apple. Instead of having sweet cereal in the mornings for breakfast, you could have an egg with a little spinach and something like that. You can start making baby steps. And you also don't have to wait till January to start. You can start walking for 5 minutes. It doesn't have to be 30 minutes. You could do 5 minutes in the morning, five at lunchtime, and five in the afternoon. Just start taking baby steps because baby steps become best steps. And you've got to prioritize your health. It's just very important to
Without
prioritize
our
your health.
health, what do we have? Right. So
Without your health, you have nothing because no matter how much money, I think of the Apple guy, um,
Steve
the
Jobs.
Apple guy.
Steve,
Jobs, look how much money he had, and even that money couldn't really help him. So sometimes we're chasing the dollar, and what we should really be chasing first and foremost is our mental, emotional, and physical health.
thank you, Marva. Thank you for sharing your story and reminding us that diagnosis does not have to define the rest of our lives. Your journey beautifully reflects something at the heart of the creative activist way, that we can take life as it's handed to us, even the experiences that are uncomfortable or miserable, and then choose to do something greater with it, with greater meaning, possibility, and service. Sometimes turning pain into purpose begins with something very small: listening to your body, making one different choice, asking for help, believing that another chapter is possible. And perhaps that is what your story reminds us most powerfully. It's never too late to listen. It's never too late to choose differently. And it's never too late to begin again. I'm Ray Luskin, and this is the Creative Activist Way, turning pain to purpose, where we discover our gifts, share our stories, and use what we've lived to make a meaningful difference. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, Ray.